I'm on top of the world right now because I got the #1 show in the country. Well, that's just luck. But I'll tell you something. I'm head over heels in love with the best girl in the world. And that's not just luck. That's God smiling on me. When Vicky said yes to me.
If you were a kid in the last 40 years or so, it's very likely that you have seen a couple of movies from Gene Wilder. His recognizable face with big puppy eyes and curly hair have been in many comedy classics, especially from the 1960s throughout the 1980s. Wilder was always a type of actor that was capable of giving warmth yet could still convey that half-insane menace. After all, he did make movies such as Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or even Young Frankenstein, where even though extremely comedic, had very dark undertones. A muse and collaborator of Mel Brooks, Wilder and that face of his were emblematic of the cerebral, absurdist spoofs of heyday. This is the third video in my 3-part retrospective on Gene Wilder. My previous 2 videos focus on his career from the early days till the 80s, whereas this video will focus on his career from the 90s onward. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or hitting the like button. This helps the channel drastically and helps YouTube recognize to push this video to a wider audience. With that being said, let's delve into the subject. Gene Wilder's later years. After having an extremely successful run of films for almost 3 decades, with many ups and downs and even a couple of flops at the box office, which ultimately became cult classics, Gene Wilder entered the 90s, and this was not as good an era for him movie-wise. Maybe it's due to the fact that he had just lost his wife, Gilda Radner, in 1989, or that his biggest co-star, Richard Pryor, had recently been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and would not be able to perform comedy alongside him like in the latter movies. But pretty much all his 90s movies weren't very successful throughout that decade. In 1990, he starred in a film called Funny About Love, where a New York cartoonist, Duffy Bergman, played by Wilder, marries a gourmet chef, Meg Lloyd. Meg wants to have a baby and Duffy agrees, but after multiple unsuccessful attempts, Duffy encourages her to focus on her career. Meg becomes fixated on wanting to have a baby, which results in marital problems leading to separation. As a consequence, Duffy travels to Arizona and meets a much younger woman named Daphne DeLillo, and she becomes pregnant with his child. She eventually has a miscarriage and they break up because of that. Duffy, still in love with Meg, tries to get her back. As you can tell even from the explanation of the film, it doesn't feel like a pure comedy and could almost be interpreted as a drama in some ways. Funny About Love didn't do well at the box office. On a fun note, it was directed by Leonard Nimoy, who used to act as Spock in the original Star Trek series. In 1991, Wilder performed in one final movie alongside Pryor. The feature was entitled Another You, in which Pryor's physical deterioration from multiple sclerosis was clearly noticeable. It was Pryor's last starring role in the film, even though he did appear in a few cameos before his death in 2005. In this movie, we follow George, played by Gene Wilder, who after years in a mental institution is finally released and tries to adapt to life outside of the hospital walls. Things quickly become eventful for George, however, when he is mistaken for Abe Fielding, also played by Wilder, a wealthy man who recently vanished. Eddie Dash, played by Richard Pryor, realizes the situation and decides to seize the opportunity and have George pose as Fielding, resulting in plenty of awkward moments. Another You was an extremely plagued production. After 5 weeks of filming, on the last night of location filming, the original director Peter Bogdanovich was fired and replaced by Maurice Phillips. The studio deemed that none of the original footage filmed in New York was usable, and they decided to move production to Los Angeles and refilm everything from scratch. Apparently, Bogdanovich and Wilder didn't get along because he gave too much attention to Pryor and his physical illness. With such a plagued production, it's no surprise that this movie didn't do extremely well at the box office. Actually, this also marked the final cinema release for Gene Wilder, as his previous 3 films had also bombed at the box office. Wilder's remaining work consisted of television movies and guest appearances in TV shows. The first of these TV projects was the 1994 NBC series entitled Something Wilder. The series was supposed to start airing in the fall of 1994, but was delayed a few weeks before because Jennifer Grey had originally been cast as the wife of Gene Wilder. But test audiences found that the age discrepancy just wasn't believable, so they cast Hilary Bailey instead and refilmed the pilot. Something Wilder follows the story of a 50-something-year-old husband, Gene Bergman, played by Wilder, and his wife Annie, played by Hilary Bailey Smith, who are learning to cope with raising 4-year-old fraternal twin sons. Basically, the series shows the struggle that Gene has facing fatherhood at this much later age in life. Low ratings promoted NBC to pull the show after only 4 episodes had aired. It was relaunched in December in a new Tuesday slot, but never did very well in ratings. After 18 episodes, NBC dropped the show from its lineup in March 1995. In 1999, Wilder starred in a TV movie entitled Murder in a Small Town. This movie was co-written by him and actually the first original A&E film. In this film, we follow Wilder as Larry Cash Carter, stage director, theater manager, former actor, and an official consulting detective for the police department in 1930s Stamford, Connecticut. Following the death of his wife, a theatrical impresario decides to leave the rat race in order to become director of a community theater in Connecticut. However, when the most hated man in town is killed, Larry Carter is called upon to help solve the mystery. This movie was an attempt for A&E to create a character that would be beloved towards most Americans. Although A&E planned to develop the Cash character Mysteries as a franchise, only one sequel followed called The Lady in Question, which was also released in 1999. In this sequel, Larry Carter sets out to investigate the suspicious death of a Jewish activist whom he suspects has been targeted by the Nazis. Both of these movies did well, but in 2000, Wilder had been admitted into the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center for a stem cell transplant, which was a follow-up to a treatment he had received in 1999, which put a hiatus on making any further movies. Gene Wilder did recover, but these events and the time that they happened at probably put a sort of roadblock to the series. Also in 1999, Gene Wilder acted in another made-for-TV movie adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, where he played the role of the mock turtle, where Alice and the turtles sing a duet and encourages her on her journey. This wasn't the biggest part in the movie, but still a fun scene to watch and actually an enjoyable TV adaptation of the popular Alice in Wonderland. As an interesting note, this movie used a lot of puppetry mixed with live action, which was created by the Jim Henson's Creature Shop that became very popular through their show, The Muppets. From 1999 to 2000, Gene Wilder was battling non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but confirmed in 2005 that the cancer was in complete remission following chemotherapy and a stem cell transplant. His final acting role was in 2 episodes for the TV show Will and Grace, which was an American sitcom which ran from 1998 to 2006. He plays Mr. Steen, who is the boss of Will and apparently has been absent from the office due to working in London, but is later revealed that he was actually in a mental institution. His character in the show is noticeably absent-minded and has short-term memory loss, needing to be constantly reminded of his identity and surrounding. He also has a tendency to break out into song. This role earned him a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Comedy Series. This ended Gene Wilder's screen career. From 2003 forward, he focused his creative energy on writing novels and stories, as well as painting. In 2005, he released his highly personal memoir, What Is This Thing Called Love? His third novel, Something to Remember You by Perilous Romance, was released in 2013. In a 2013 interview by Time Out New York magazine, they asked Gene Wilder if he'd ever considered going back to acting. He answered that he was tired of watching the bombing, shooting, killing, swearing, and 3D. And that he gets on average 52 scripts to act in, but that none of them are to his pleasing. On August 29, 2016, Gene Wilder passed away at the age of 83 from complications of Alzheimer's disease. He had kept the knowledge of his condition private, but had been diagnosed 3 years prior to his death. The reasoning behind this secret was that he didn't want children that recognized him in the street feeling sad about his illness and preferred them to remember him as Willy Wonka. With this, my retrospective on Gene Wilder comes to an end. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please be sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Leave me a comment too if you feel so inclined. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.